I was the family scapegoat. My startup failed, my marriage ended, and I moved into my parents' basement at 42. My sister's toast at Christmas was, "To Alina, our permanent guest." The laughter was a blade. My brother borrowed my last $5,000 for a can't-lose deal that lost it. Then my best friend, the one person I trusted, published my business plan as her own. I had nothing. Absolutely nothing. So I started with the only thing they couldn't take, my rage. I channeled it into a single, silent purpose. 5 years later, I own the building my sister rents her boutique from. Hello. Welcome to Hurt Stories. They tell you rock bottom is a place. It's not. It's a material. It's the substance you're made of when everything else has been stripped away. At 42 years old, I was molded from pure, unadulterated rock bottom. I was Alina, the family cautionary tale. The startup I'd poured 7 years into, a platform connecting local artisans with global markets, had collapsed, a victim of bad timing and a duplicitous investor. My husband, unable to handle the second-hand failure, as he called it, left. He took the friends, the social circle, the remnants of a respectable life. All I had was my car, 2 suitcases of clothes, and a crushing debt. Which is how I ended up in the basement of my childhood home, not as a daughter welcomed back, but as a problem to be stored out of sight. My parents' disappointment was a low, constant hum, like the furnace next to my makeshift bedroom. My older sister, Diana, was the golden child. Married to a dentist, owner of a tweet home goods boutique called The Gilded Nest, perpetually fragrant with the smell of prosperity and self-satisfaction. My younger brother, Kyle, was the charming rogue, always on the verge of a big score that never materialized, buoyed by our parents' endless subsidies. That first Christmas back, I used the last of my dignity to buy modest gifts. Diana hosted. Her home was a monument to curated comfort. We were gathered around her impeccably set table when she raised her glass. "A toast," she trilled, her eyes gleaming with a particular kind of sibling cruelty. "To family, to being together, and especially to Alina, our permanent guest." The laughter that rippled around the table wasn't malicious. It was worse. It was agreeing. It was the collective affirmation of my new, pathetic identity. I was the punchline that had come home to roost. I looked at my parents, hopping for a flicker of defense. My mother looked at her napkin. My father took a long drink. In that moment, I felt the final, gossamer thread of familial connection snap. I wasn't a member of this family. I was their shared burden, their entertainment. The betrayal came from Kyle. He found me crying in the basement a week later, not over the toast, but over a final notice from a creditor. "Hey, sis, don't worry about those bloodsuckers," he said, putting a brotherly arm around me. "I've got a sure thing, importing these specialty motors for vintage cars. The profit margin is insane. I just need a little capital to secure the first container. $5,000. I'll pay you back 10 in 60 days, get you out of this hole." He presented spreadsheets. He used words like leveraged and arbitrage. He was speaking the language of the successful brother I wanted him to be. And I, desperate for a lifeline, for proof that someone in this family believed I was worth investing in, gave him the last $5,000 I had in the world. It was my escape fund, my seed capital for whatever came next. He disappeared with it. The sure thing evaporated. When I finally reached him, his tone was all wounded indignation. "It was a bad break, Alina. You think I wanted to lose your money? You're so negative. This is why you fail." My parents' response when I told them, "You know how Kyle is. You shouldn't have given him money you couldn't afford to lose." The victim, again, blamed. Then came the abandonment. The only person who still called, who still seemed to see me and not the failure, was my best friend since college, Sarah. She'd listen for hours. She'd encourage me. "Your artisan platform idea was genius, Alina. It was just ahead of its time. You have to do something with that brain of yours." In a moment of profound vulnerability, I shared with her a new, refined concept, a hybrid physical marketplace and digital platform for female-led artisan food brands. I sent her my notes, my sketches, my financial projections. She was my sounding board, my last remaining mirror. 6 months later, an industry newsletter popped up in my inbox. Featured article: How Sarah Jenkins is revolutionizing the artisan food space with the collective table. My heart stopped. The description was my concept. The branding was different, but the core architecture, the revenue model, the vendor onboarding process, the hybrid structure was mine. I called her, my hands shaking. Her voice was cool, professional. Alina, ideas are in the air. You can't own a concept. I've executed. You didn't. I'm sorry if you're upset, but this is business. Mocked by my family, betrayed by my brother, robbed by my best friend, abandoned by everyone, rock bottom. That night in the basement, I didn't cry. I sat in the dark, the hollowed-out silence inside me so complete it was deafening. And from that absolute zero, a new energy was born. It wasn't hope. Hope was too fragile. It was rage. A cold, clean, crystalline rage. It was not a fire to burn others, but a reactor core to power myself. They had taken everything external, so all that was left was internal. And I would forge that internal space into an unassailable fortress. I made 3 rules. 1, total radio silence. No arguments, no accusations, no pleas for understanding. They would get nothing from me but a bland, impenetrable politeness. 2, I would become a monolith of discipline. My energy would go only into actions that built, never into reactions that drained. 3, I would use their own weapons against them, but I would do it from such a height they wouldn't see the blow coming. Phase 1 was survival. I got 3 jobs: a daytime admin position at a real estate office, a nighttime shelf stocker at a grocery store, weekend shifts at a garden center. I lived on rice, beans, and the reactor core of my rage. Every time I ached, every time I was humiliated by a condescending boss, I would mentally add a brick to my fortress. This is for Diana's toast. This is for Kyle's lie. This is for Sarah's theft. In the real estate office, I didn't just file papers. I studied. I learned everything about commercial properties, zoning, rental yields, property management. I saw how wealth was built not through flashy startups, but through the slow, steady acquisition of assets. The grocery store taught me supply chains, inventory, the brutal math of margin. The garden center taught me about cultivation, patience, and the value of creating beauty from scratch. Phase 2 was the creation of a new identity. With my first saved $1,000, I didn't spend it. I used it to form an LLC, not for a tech platform, for a property holding company. The most boring, unsexy thing imaginable. I named it Cornerstone Holdings. I was the sole employee. I began to scour listings for distressed, small commercial properties in up-and-coming neighborhoods. I saw value where others saw decay. My years of curating artisan goods had given me an eye for aesthetic potential. My first purchase was a condemned, narrow 2-story building in a neglected part of town. The roof leaked. The floors were unsound. It was a horror. I used a hard money loan with a vicious interest rate, backed by nothing but an insane plan. I spent a year renovating it myself. I learned plumbing from YouTube. I sanded floors until my hands bled. I slept on site in a sleeping bag. The reactor core powered me through 20-hour days. I divided it. The ground floor became a bright, raw space. I didn't rent it to just anyone. I offered it at a deep discount to a collective of immigrant women who made extraordinary food but had no commercial kitchen. They became the Hearth Collective. The upper floor I turned into a sleek, small office suite. I rented it to a young female architect who needed visibility. I wasn't just a landlord. I was a curator. I was building my own ecosystem. The Hearth Collective became a word-of-mouth sensation. The street changed. Other small, interesting businesses moved in. The property value doubled, then tripled. I refinanced, paid off the hard money loan, and used the equity to buy the next building. And the next. I operated in total secrecy. My family knew I had some real estate job and assumed I was still barely scraping by. When forced to interact, I was vague, pleasant, and boring. I was a gray rock. They lost interest, which was exactly what I wanted. 5 years passed. Cornerstone Holdings owned 12 properties. I had a small, fierce team. We focused exclusively on undervalued assets and tenanting them with businesses that had soul, that built community. It was the antithesis of the sterile, profit-obsessed world my family admired, and it was wildly, quietly profitable. The win was not dramatic. It was a series of exquisite, silent checkmates. The first was Kyle. He came to me again with a can't-lose deal, a franchise opportunity. He needed a cosigner on a loan. I listened politely. Then I said, "I'm sorry, Kyle, I don't cosign, but my company might be interested in the commercial property for the franchise. Here's my card. Have your lender contact our finance department." The look on his face, as he realized the pathetic sister was now a corporate entity with a finance department, was my first taste of victory. It was not sweet, it was solid. The second was Sarah. The collective table had plateaued. She was seeking venture capital. One of the VC firms on her list was an investor in one of my property funds. In a meeting, they mentioned her name. I shared dispassionately a brief timeline of the concept's genesis. I didn't sue. I didn't need to. I simply cast a small shadow of doubt. Her funding round fell through. Karma didn't need my help, it just needed a nudge. The final move was Diana. Her boutique, The Gilded Nest, was in a charming but increasingly expensive downtown storefront. Her lease was coming up for renewal, and the landlord was tripling the rent. She was panicked. She was lamenting at a family dinner I was forced to attend. "I'll have to close, that location is everything." I took a sip of water. "What's the address?" she told me. I knew it well. I owned the building through a subsidiary LLC. I had bought it 2 years prior. "I might know someone," I said offhandedly. "I can ask my property manager to reach out. Maybe they can offer a longer-term lease at a stable rate." Diana, desperate, was effusively grateful. "Oh, Alina, that would be a miracle." The next week, her new lease arrived from Cornerstone Holdings. The terms were fair, even generous. But at the very top, the ownership and management contact was listed. It was my name, my official title, principal and founder. The call came within an hour. Her voice was a strangled mix of shock, fury, and a dawning, horrific respect. You own my building." "I do," I said, my voice calm. "And we're very happy to have the Gilded Nest as a tenant. Your curated aesthetic adds real value to the property." The silence on the other end was the sound of my victory being complete. I owned the ground beneath her feet. The mocked, betrayed, abandoned sister was now the landlady. The power dynamic had not just shifted, it had been inverted and cemented in a legal document. I didn't gloat. I didn't raise her rent. I just let the truth sit there, a monument to my journey. They had given me nothing but ammunition, their mockery, their betrayal, their abandonment. And I had used every scrap of it to build an empire of bricks and mortar, an empire so real and tangible that their sneers could no longer touch me. I won not by confronting them, but by outgrowing them so completely that their arena became a small, inconsequential corner of my world. I won by transforming the raw, painful material of rock bottom into an unshakable foundation. The ultimate victory isn't in their apology. I never got one, and I no longer need it. The ultimate victory is in the profound, unassailable peace of walking through a door you built yourself, knowing you hold the key to every lock and the deed to every room. They gave me nothing, and from that nothing I built everything. Thanks for listening. If you want to hear more story like this, please like the video and subscribe the channel. Hit the bell icon to get notified.